Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we are going to see how useState hook works. React components are just functions. Be it a class component or a functional component, it eventually gets converted into a function and gets rendered. So function do not remember the value between the calls. Whenever React re-renders the component, the function runs from top to bottom and it loses the context of the previous call. So React needs a way to remember the value. That's where exactly the use of useState hook comes in. The syntax of useState hook is like it returns two values in the form of array. We are destructuring the value. The first value is the state itself, the current value. The second one is the setter function with help of which we can set a new value to the state. And the third thing is the initial value. This value, whenever the component renders for the first time, this value will be set for this state. This initial value can be a single value or it can be a function that returns an array or an object. If it's a function, we need to take care of few things. The function needs to be a pure function. Pure function means even if we change the input for this function, the output should not be changed. The second requirement is the function. For this initial value, the function that we are passing, it should not have any arguments. Now, the setter function can modify the value in two ways. The first one is directly passing the value. This value will be assigned to the state and the value will be changed. The another way is passing a callback function. The callback function takes an argument. This is the current value of the state and we can make any operation on the current state and return the value, and this value will be saved in the new state value. One thing to remember, the React will skip the re-render if the old value is provided again. So currently the name state contains the value Edward. Here we are trying to change the value to Taylor. So React sees the difference that Taylor is different from Edward and it will re-render and assign the Taylor value to name. Suppose we provide, instead of Taylor, we provide Edward here. So the previous state and the next state value are same and React will skip the render process. Now we'll see the different usage of useState hook. First use is adding state component that we saw earlier. We can declare any state and provide it with the value, and with the help of setter function we can modify the state. So let's jump into the code editor and we can see a real example. So here it's just a simple React application. We'll declare a count variable setter function. It's a general convention to add a set and make it a capital letter of that state name. This is the convention that we follow for a setter function. Now we can call the useState hook. This is imported from the React library and we can pass it a value, let's say 42 we have provided. Now let's create a p tag, provide this count value, and if we save we can see this value. Now we can create a setter function, let's say function handle count, and here what we'll do, we'll set count to 55. We can save the value. Let's create a button, give it a name like click, and we'll provide it with a on click function and it will call this handle count. We save. Now if we click here, this set count function will called and the count variable will hold the new value. If I click, it changed the value. But this is not the ideal case. We don't know what kind of value the currently this count variable holds. So we need a different way. So let's say we want to, whenever we click on this one, we want to do a increment by 1. Increment by 1. So in that case, what we can do, take the current value and add 1 to it. Okay. Now whatever the previous value, it will add 1. So this is the basic use of useState hook. Let's discuss about the important concept, how the updation works in useState. So let's say the current value for this name state is Taylor. In this handle click function, we are updating the value to Robin, and just after that we are consoling the name, the state name. So the state name will still be Taylor. It won't be updated to Robin. This updation happens on the next rendering cycle. So until the component is re-rendered, the value, even if we have modified it through the setter function, the value will not be changed immediately. So to see that in action, we have here an example. We are setting an age in a handle click function. We are setting the age 3 times. So let's copy this function and jump into the code editor. Here this handle click function, it's okay. For this one, let's create states like age age. The setter function is set age, and use state, and let's give it a age of 24, right? So this handle click function calls this setter function 3 times, and every time it tries to increase the age by 1. So what will happen after increasing the first time? It should be 25, it should be 26, and it should be 27. So let's see that in action. The age, we need to pass it age, and let's create a button click, pass it a on click handler, the name handle click, and give it a save. Now if I click on it, it will call this handle click and change the value to 27. But wait, what happens here? Every time we click, even if we are calling the setter function 3 times, the value is only getting increased by 1. So what actually is happening here? The value of age is 24 in each of this statement. Here also the value of age is 24, here also 24, here also 24. As I mentioned earlier, even if we change the value to a different one, until the next render cycle, this value won't be updated. Okay, so what is the workaround? We need to take advantage of the callback function that we can pass, and we can take the current value and again perform some operation. And every time we change the state through a callback function, it takes the modified value, this one and this one. Now if we give it a save, let's say we re-render, and now here the value of age was 24. Here when it came, it modified to 25, then again it 26. So that's how, if you want to make any changes in the same cycle before the rendering complete and modify it again and again, then you need to take advantage of this callback function that is provided by this setter function. Okay, now let's see the another usage, updating the objects and array in the state. Let's say we are creating a form. It has multiple fields like first name, last name, age, and we want to modify the value. So just by assigning this value without using the setter function won't trigger the re-render, and this value won't get changed. We don't want to mutate the object. Instead, we want to replace the object with a new value like this. We are calling the setter function, we are spreading the current whatever the values are there, and for the first name we need to set this thing. So let's see an example, we'll get a clear understanding for this one. Const, let's create a form state, set for, we can use useState. We'll pass it a object which will contain first name, let's say Edgar, the last name Jonas, and another variable age, let's say 24. Okay, we can give it a save. Now let's print the values. Like the first one is the first name, we can call the for dot first name. We can copy duplicate this one. This is for the last name, and we can print the age here, last name age. Now the first name is Edgar, Jonas, and age is 24. Now let's create a form. In this form we will have a tray input, and the placeholder will be first name. Let's increase the size a little bit, and we can create two other fields. The second one is last name, third one is age. Okay, we have three fields, first name, last name for the age. Now we need to provide an on change listener where it will take a callback function and call the set form method. Here we need to pass an object, spread the current values, and for the first name we need to provide, okay, we forgot to pass the event object from where we'll get the value, target dot value. Okay, now we need to do this for every field. On change it to last name, and for age also change it to age. Now so we have created on change, we have created three input boxes for this form, and we are changing the values for it. Let's say we want to change the name to Robin, the last name to Nicholas, and the age to 55. So this is how we can also modify the value of objects. Also we can create form and update the values as per the user input and make use use of this use state hook. The next concept is avoid recreating the initial state. Let's say we are passing a function into the initial state. So the result of the create initial to do's, this function is only once used. So whenever it is called for the first time or the component is rendered, this function will be called. Whatever the returned value, that will be stored in the to do's. But if you see, we are not passing the function, we are invoking the or calling the function. So every time the component re-renders, this function will be called, even if this value will not get assigned to to-dos, because the initial state value will only be assigned during the first render, and on subsequent render, if we are passing any value through setter function, that thing will only be used to update the value. So just to avoid this overhead, this creating the function or recreating the function again and again, to avoid this overhead, we can pass the function so that it won't be created on subsequent render. So these were all the important concepts that I wanted to share with you regarding use state hook. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for videos like this.